What's up, you homies? It's your homegirl Natalie, and today I'm finally giving you the teaching Q&A video. Just one thing that I want to do before we start, just a little bit about me, is that I'm actually not an EPIK teacher. I'm actually in SMOE, which is the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education program. So I'm in the SMOE program, and obviously that is specifically only for Seoul. I was an EPIK teacher in Daejeon for 2 years, and then I moved to SMOE, and I'm currently on my second year. In terms of the switching process, I shouldn't necessarily call it switching because it's not like you can just transfer over to the next program. What you have to do is actually you need to just do the whole application process all over again for Seoul. That's just something to keep in mind. If you wanted to change, you have to reapply, do everything all over again. Yeah. My major in university was international business, and I had a minor in marketing management. So that is me. Okay, now let's get into the first question. First question comes from Internet Papa, and they ask, do you try to teach your students some of your traditions, like from Peru? Well, absolutely. I definitely try to do when I can in my classroom. So if we have a lesson, like for example, the 5th graders have Do You Want Some More, where we talk about food. And there I have the opportunity to introduce them to Peruvian cuisine and of course cuisine from all over the world too. For the 6th graders, we had Take This Medicine and Get Some Rest, where we're talking about how do you feel? Do you feel well? I feel sick, da da da. Take medicine, get some rest. So with that, I was able to show my 6th graders some like home remedies that I know from like Peru, and also just some home remedies all around the world. Out of the classroom, I always try to teach my students a little bit of something, like instead of saying bye, we say ciao. That I teach them. I was like, oh, that could be Italian for like hello or goodbye. Or we could also use it in Spanish, or I'll teach some of my students like hola and adios, like things like that. Hey, Dolly for Sue asks, what has been your best memory from teaching abroad so far? I was still working in Daejeon, and my co-teacher basically set this whole thing up, and it was amazing. So what she did is that she contacted a high school, I believe, from South Africa. They were actually doing like a program in South Korea, so they made a stop at our school. My students were able to meet new foreigners, and not only that, the students that came from South Africa didn't all look like, you know, one certain type of foreigner that maybe they might be used to, but they were a bunch of different types of foreigners, different skin tones, different sizes, different everything, you know. And I thought it was really awesome for my students to see that. I remember at the end of it, my students were like, oh my god, like South Africa is so cool, like I totally want to go visit there, like South African people are so nice, South African people are so pretty, and they just had such an amazing experience. So the South African students were able to showcase their culture to the students in Korea, and then my Korean students were able to showcase their culture to the South Africans, and I just, that was so awesome. So definitely my best memories thus far. Next question is for Jennifer.exo.yalin. What grades do you teach? I teach grades 3 to 6 in Seoul, and in Daejeon I used to only teach grades 4 to 6. She also asks, is it fun? It's like any type of other job. It can be fun. Sometimes it gives me a headache. Sometimes it could be really boring. I've seen and heard of all different types of experiences. For me personally, I think for the most part it's been fun, but it definitely has given me a lot of headaches and things like that too. I mean, it's like any other job. You have your highs and your lows. She also asks, how long have you been in the EPIK program? Like I said, technically I'm in the SMOE program, which it's not necessarily under EPIK, but when you're applying for the SMOE program, you can either apply directly to SMOE, or you can apply through EPIK, where it's like you fill out the EPIK paperwork, but you choose like Seoul, and there's like an additional paperwork that you do, like saying like I want to get into Seoul. Like I said, I was in the EPIK program for 2 years, but I'm currently in the SMOE program. Megan C. asked, yay, super excited for this. I was curious as to what led you to do the EPIK program. My college major was not teaching, but it still sounds super interesting, rewarding, and exciting. Was teaching always your goal? And how do you prepare for school/form lesson plans? Is there any guidance? Thank you. So what led me to the EPIK program is that I did a study abroad/internship in Seoul during my sophomore year in uni. And from there, I found out that being an English teacher was one of the ways to come back to Korea. So that's what kind of opened me up to the EPIK program. Teaching wasn't necessarily my goal. My goal was to come back to Korea and also have a stable job, and a job that I knew that I was capable of doing and doing a good job at. What I want to say is that it is really interesting, rewarding, and it's super exciting, but I don't want to romanticize it. There are definitely days where I'm like, I wish I wasn't doing this. Absolutely. Just like with any job, you have your highs and your lows. There are going to be days where you're like, this freaking sucks major ass. But it really depends on you. Because it depends on your perspective. It depends on like how you take situations. And for the most part, how I like to see it is that despite me having those negative moments or those bad times, like let's say basically out of like all these times that my experience has been great, there's still like a small bubble here that it has been negative, but I'm not gonna let that throw everything of my good experiences that I've had here as being a teacher. How do you prepare for school or lesson plans? Okay, so I know a lot of people might be a little bit worried, like I don't know how to do a lesson plan, The hardest lesson plan that you will be doing is your lesson plan for your application, because for many of us, you probably didn't even know what that was. So that will definitely be your hardest lesson plan. However, this depends on your school. I've had friends where in their schools, their co-teachers wanted them to literally write lesson plans like all the time. For me, I don't have to write any type of lesson plans, and I've only had to write a lesson plan when I have to do like an open class, then I write a lesson plan, but it's fairly easy. I do believe they do kind of give you some type of like lecture during your orientation when you come to Korea, so that's not something that you should be worrying about. So in terms of you teaching like in class, this will depend on your co-teacher. So for some co-teachers, they might want you to literally just stand there and just be a translator. It's kind of like a robot. They'll call on you, can you say this in English? And you just say it in English, the kids repeat, and that might be the extent of what you do during a class, which that can get so boring. I think what is most common is that Korean teacher basically do like majority of the lesson, and then they will give you like maybe 15 minutes at the end of class for you to do a game. So what you need to basically be in charge of is finding a game. And how you do that, there are many resources, online resources that you can find. Of course, you know, it's always great to use your creativity, like wegook.org. However, now they're starting to charge, so if you're okay with paying, and there's also Coursera. This opened up because Wegook was starting to charge, and basically what's on these sites are teaching materials, like a bunch of games, a bunch of PowerPoints, you know, discussions, forums. There's a bunch of things you can find on there. I currently like to use more Coursera because I don't have to pay for it. Only downside I would say to Coursera is that because it is relatively new, it doesn't have a vast majority of resources as Wegook, because that's been going on for years. Next question comes from Latin Star Soul. To live in Korea, your visa is sponsored by your employer. If hired by EPIK or any other employer in Korea, would one be allowed to have any other job in Korea? Would you be allowed to have another job, let's say online, paid by the US or another country? I'm not going to talk about the any other employer in Korea part because I'm not sure about that. But if you're on the E2 visa, which is the visa specifically for foreigner teaching English, then no, it is illegal to have any other type of job besides your teaching job. There are people that do tutoring on the side, but I will say that comes with its own risks, because if anyone were to find out and if anyone were to basically blow the whistle on you, that is absolutely grounds for you to get deported. I'm not gonna say to try that or not to try that. That's completely up to you. Separately, Rachel asks, how difficult was it for you to build friendships with other EPIK teachers in your community? Does the fact that you get to live and teach in Korea counteract any potentially crippling loneliness? So the good thing, I think, about going through the government programs of EPIK, GEPIK, and SMOE is that when you do orientation, when I did orientation, it actually was like the smallest orientation that they had. And so everyone from all of those programs were in one centralized location. So sometimes there are 3 locations, maybe like Seoul and GEPIK people are in like one location. EPIK people in like that are basically like in the middle of Korea are in one location. People down south are in a different location. Or if it's a small intake, then it will be in like just one centralized location. With that said, I think it is easy because the moment you get to your orientation, you will meet all the other teachers that are in your community during your same intake. So you'll meet everyone plus other people from other different cities. From there, all you really got to do is just be a friendly person and meet some friends. I think the initial point of you coming to Korea as an EPIK or GEPIK or SMOE teacher, that is super easy. I can only implore you so much to really make friends during your EPIK orientation. They are going to be your safety net. They're going to be the best people to understand what you're going through. In terms of the loneliness part, I would like to maybe expand on that in a different video because I do have some things to say about that. But I think for the purpose of your question, of you coming to Korea, I really don't think that you will experience that much loneliness if you build friendships during orientation. So don't worry about that, Rachel. La 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 na asks, was it hard moving to a new country? No, not really, because I've lived abroad beforehand. In terms of the actual moving process, absolutely. I was like, I need to take all my clothing because I knew I wasn't necessarily going to fit in a lot of the clothing here. And I was like, I need all my shoes. So I was coming from America, and from America to Korea, you're allowed 2 luggages, 2 free luggages. So what I did is I went ahead and paid for a 3rd luggage because I needed it. I definitely needed it. So that's what I did, and that made the process a lot easier because I had more space. The second part of the question is, how was learning basic living things like recycling, laundry, paying bills? What about phone plans? In terms of recycling, I don't think anyone necessarily taught us that. I had to find some forums, but this depends on your building. Some buildings where there's specific places like, hey, this trash bin is specifically for this trash bin is for this, And these type of questions for even laundry and paying bills and phone plans, these are things that your co-teacher will help you with. Especially the phone plan part, your co-teacher will be in charge of taking you to go get a phone and a phone plan, and also even doing your bank stuff too. So don't worry about that. But in terms of laundry, I think for the most part, if you just translate everything, it's pretty easy to figure out what is what. Is it possible to save money living there? A lot of people say it is. This depends on you, dude. This depends on absolutely 100% on you. Because how much money you're trying to save, how much money you're trying to spend. What I think what you should keep in mind is that your housing is paid. Unless you try to find your own housing like I did. But for the most part, your housing is paid. So I think that's a pretty big thing. But in terms of saving money, for me personally, I do YouTube, so I have to invest my money in camera equipment, studios, other different things. So I have to put my money there. I also try to pay off my student loans. It also really depends. Do you have a lot of student loans? If you don't have student loans, then of course you could save money. But I have student loans, and so I don't really want to say yeah, it's super easy to save money because maybe you really want to go out all the time. Or what if you like to eat out a lot? There's a bunch of other different factors that go into it. With the salary that I have, I invest in, my YouTube equipment and YouTube things that I need to get done. Any other money I have left over, I'm just paying off my student loans. For me personally, I have not been able to save a lot of money, but I do have friends that have saved a lot of money. They've kind of have a budget laid out for them. So yeah. She also asks, girl, I know you ain't plus size, but what are your opinions on plus sizes and teaching in Korea? Do you know many? Do you think it's harder just because the appearance and whatnot is so important in Korea? I feel like when it comes down to it, kids are brutally honest with you despite however you look like. Kids will come up to me and teacher, you look so tired today. And I'm like, thanks. Sure, you look weird or something. And I'm like, thank you so much, friends. I do know friends that are plus size and do teaching here, and I haven't necessarily heard anything that's been really awful. I know appearance is important here in Korea, but being that you're a foreigner, sometimes I feel like they might not hold you to those standards because you're not Korean. I think it's just important for you to do teaching because you're already setting foot in a classroom with a bunch of kids that have this idea of beauty, have this ideal. By you just being there, you're kind of shattering those ideas, because when it gets down to it, they'll get to know you and be teacher, you're so beautiful, or my teacher is so kind, my teacher is so funny, or something like that. And that in itself just shatters whatever those ideas they have about, their own beauty ideals. If they can find you to be cool, interesting, funny, and beautiful, it's that in itself is power. So don't let something oh, I'm plus size, so I don't know how my life is gonna be here. No, screw that, man. Screw that. Also, do you plan on staying in Korea for more than 1 year? Yeah, I definitely do plan on staying here for at least maybe 2 years. I don't know. My renewal for my school is coming up. And to be very frank, I would love to stop teaching. I do enjoy it, but there are some moments where I'm like, okay, this is kind of getting a little bit redundant. Like, it would be nice to like have a change, do something different. I would like to, you know, possibly do YouTube full time, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards currently at this point in time. If I could stop teaching, then I would. Do you want to teach anywhere else? Where would you teach? I don't really want to teach anywhere else because I don't want to do teaching for a very long time. I don't really find this as my career. I would really like to live in Japan, but if I were to live in Japan, I definitely would not want to be teaching there. Jessica Ramosa asks, how much teaching experience did you have beforehand? I've taught in China for a 1-month internship and considering doing EPIK. Also, how short is the shortest contract? You don't actually need any type of teaching experience. I didn't have any teaching experience. Obviously, it's better if you have experience. Maybe your chances are better, but it's not necessary to actually have any teaching experience. And if you have under a year's worth of teaching experience, you can't actually put that on like on the teaching experience part of the application. You're like, I have teaching experience, I taught for 1 month. Like, no, they would need you to teach for at least 1 year, like on contract. The shortest contract is a year. You can't do 6 months. Technically, you can quit after 6 months, but if you quit after 6 months and you lose a lot of your benefits, and I would not try to be losing my benefits, so I would say you gotta stick it for that year. Celine asks, how did you know you wanted to be an EPIK teacher? Again, I am a SMOE teacher, actually, not an EPIK teacher, but I didn't necessarily knew that I wanted to be. It wasn't like, that's my calling. I just knew that I wanted to come back to Korea. I wanted to have a stable job, and I wanted to have a job that I knew that I can do to my best ability. And being that I think I'm a pretty creative person, I think I'm pretty friendly with the kids, so I thought, you know, teaching could be a good thing for me. And for the most part, it definitely has been. I've been really lucky to have the experience that I've had here in Korea, in the schools that I've had here in Korea. And I know this doesn't go for a bunch of other people. I have friends who hate their schools, who hate their co-teachers right now, and are basically on the brink of being like, you know what, this is going to be my last year because I just hate this so much. There are definitely those situations. For the most part, what I kind of look forward to most as being a teacher, and what kind of excited me most, was I really love building the connections with my students. It's like warms my heart when they're able to trust in me with, you know, just any little thing. I don't know, I'm kind of going off course with your question, but I hope this helped anyone who is thinking about doing any of the teaching programs here in Korea. Also, one thing that I want to say before I go is, if you have any like specific questions that are like specifically tied to you, like I'm X person from this country, I have this, please email a coordinator. I cannot answer those questions for you. Because I get a lot of YouTube comments of like specific things, and I'm like, I'm not a coordinator. I can't answer that because I don't know about the specifics. So please email an EPIK, GEPIK, or SMOE coordinator to help you out. With that said, I will leave you guys here. I hope you guys I hope this video finds you well. I hope you're having a great day. Please be safe, stay happy, and good luck with your applications. Bye! Maybe I'll see you in Korea soon. Ciao!